All right, welcome back to Blue by 90. I'm Justin, joined by Tanner today, and it is Ohio State week. Beat Ohio week. I've got my anti-Buckeye Social Club hoodie on. By far, I get more compliments on this hoodie and more people asking for it than any other hoodie. So it's at blueby90shop.com. Go grab it. It is unbelievable quality, super heavyweight. And just electric, just an elite way to spend this Saturday. So go.
It's exclusive. I don't have one myself, so it's a very exclusive item.
It is,
and definitely go to Blue by 90 shop. Check it out. Got a lot of stuff on there. A lot of good stuff.
A lot of good stuff. I know our guy Nolan is working on a Black Friday sale as well with some of the Ohio State stuff. So go check that out. But it's Ohio State week. Michigan, I just saw today, 20.5 point underdogs. So
23.5, maybe different books.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the 20 to 23-ish range. I don't care. I don't care. I actually love it. You know, I saw it. A couple people say that's like the largest spread in history, which is crazy. There have been a lot of bad teams on both sides. You know what I mean? Just in the history of this rivalry. So
unfortunately, more so on Michigan's side. Ohio State's like the one. Like, look at Alabama this year. It's like, can we? You know, I'm not asking for a lot, but can they just screw up a hire? You know, because regardless of the record against Michigan, Ryan Day is just running through every other team in the country. Well, so for the most, except for maybe like Bama and Georgia, but Oregon.
In
Michigan,
I would say.
Of course. That was a caveat at the start of that, but I wanted to emphasize that he has not run through Michigan.
He has the data shows he has struggled with Michigan.
Not a math guy, but 1-3. I believe that's it's not a great. That's a losing record.
Losing record is what I've been told.
Yes. Losing record to Sharon. No wins against Sharon.
0 wins against Sharon Moore.
Not enough people are discussing that.
Who, according to a lot of Ohio State fans, is like the worst coach in the history of ever, right? So if he's the worst coach in the history of ever and Ryan Day lost to him, what does that make Ryan Day?
I just want to say, I want to ask you a question. Do you know what they say, Justin?
What do they say?
They say throw the records out.
They do say throw the record books out for sure. I mean, I do think that there's I'm not going to say, I'll preface this with this. I don't know that I'm expecting Michigan to win this game. No. I think you're crazy if you're going into this we should win this game, right? But to your point about the record books and you just never know what's going on. And I think that here's how I feel about where Ohio State's at right now. Even though they, on paper, on the field, are by far the better team this year, right? I think that they're nervous because of the chance, the 7% chance or whatever on ESPN's FPI predictor that Michigan could win and what that would mean for their program. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a little bit of tightness in that program right now Michigan's down this year, not as good as they have been the last 3, but it's college football. And I've seen much crazier things happen. I've seen crazier things happen in the last 3 days. Oklahoma smoking Alabama was not something I expected, right?
So 3 points?
I mean, you just never know. I think Michigan, we've been very critical of Wink Martindale. And, the level of competition last week against Northwestern was not necessarily the greatest, but they played extremely well. They played very well against Indiana. And they played well in the second half against Oregon. So, I think if Michigan can get a level of production from their defensive line, especially with the 2 injuries up front for Ohio State and wreak some havoc, then Michigan's going to have a chance. If they can shorten the game, limit possessions, they're going to need to have an all-time, as far as what this group is offensively on the offensive line for Michigan, you're going to have your best day from everybody on the offense to do that. But against Northwestern, they were moving people. I thought the run game looked a lot better, especially in the second half. I think they found some things that worked. Now, again, level of competition needs to be looked at. But, hey, Michigan dominated Northwestern. Northwestern at one point against Ohio State, I'm not a transitive property guy, but I will be if I need to. It was 150 to 30 total yardage in that second quarter.
If it fits our narrative, we will go for it.
I will use whatever means necessary to move the narrative forward.
Well, while we're on the topic of the games this weekend, I want to get your thoughts on level of softness 1 through 10. How soft is it to tush push with 30 seconds left up 2 scores?
All right, so here's my thing that I've seen this go around a lot. I put a tweet out today about it. I woke up and I saw this. I thought it was the dumbest thing ever. So let's take, for example, similar situation. Basically the same thing. It's 31-17 Oregon. Oregon, has their 4-minute drive that they go and they move the ball, and Michigan's not calling timeouts. Oregon lines up in a normal shotgun or pistol. I cannot remember what it was. They scored. I'm totally fine with that. And I'm totally fine with Michigan saying, you know what, when we go to Autzen in 2 years, that's going to be fuel for us. I'm totally fine with that, but I'm also totally fine with, hey, if you want to stop us, you don't want us to score, you got to make a play.
Yeah.
What I don't like is Trevion Henderson falling down, whatever yard line he is. You come out in a kneel down and you fake it. That is fake tough guy mentality. If they would have come out and just ran the ball, totally fine with it. Because Kurt Cignetti has talked a lot of shit, so I get it. But to come out and be like, oh, if you don't want to get scored on, stop them. I just don't agree with it when you come out of a fake kneel situation. The only time you can ever use that play and have it work is in that situation, and I think it's soft as hell.
I agree with you. I'm with you like 99% of the time. I'm with you on, like, if you don't want it to happen, then stop it, right? Because it's football. It's it's a game, and you need to this isn't like JV football, right? Where we want to make sure that everyone plays and blah blah blah. So I'm with you on that. But I think, to your point, all the variables that were there and just knowing Ryan Day, I think adds to it, because I think that he legitimately has to do stuff like that to feel good about their team a lot. And yeah, listen, I know Cignetti, that guy might need to calm down a little bit. It was like a fun, funny thing for a little bit for Cignetti to do the Google me shit and whatever. You might need to take a back seat, especially because I think that next year, unless they go out and get a huge portal class, I think that they're going to take a huge step back.
He's getting paid, though.
He is getting good for him. Hey, he got his smart of him to get that.
It doesn't matter. I don't know what his buyout is, but now he's making double his previous salary. So, hey, shout out to him. Shout out to his agent.
Smart of them to get the deal done before
good Christmas. Good Christmas this year.
Yeah, good Christmas. But I just think that, knowing that is Ryan Day just makes it, I don't know. You question it a little bit, right?
No, for sure. Especially, when this is the guy that calls on a 4th and 1 against Notre Dame, a jet sweep that should have ended the game, except Notre Dame pissed down their leg last year. So, but I will say, I have no problem with the Will Howard Google me. I thought that was funny. I'll give props when it's due. I like that kind of shit talking. So I just, again, and my thing is, and it's a hypothetical, so it's not like I can actually point to an example, but if the roles were reversed and it's the 50-yard line and it's, Ohio State's kneeling to end the game, would Ryan Day have a problem with Indiana players, playing their ass off on the kneel down? Because I don't like when teams do that on the kneel down. I don't like the offenses going and scoring with 10 seconds left. I think that's Bush League, just like I think it's Bush League when Greg Schiano back in when he was with the Buccaneers had his guys going low on a kneel down play. I think that's an unwritten rule of, hey, game's over. We're done. We won. You lost. I just don't like that. And so I think it's just very soft.
I also, listen, I know it put them up, 3 scores then, but it actually is dumb because it's the only way that the other team can get the ball back. And then, theoretically, I know this would be very, very far-fetched. Theoretically, they can go get onside, kick it, go score. So the actual smart play, if you aren't just being, an asshole, I guess, is to just take the kneel down. You win the football game, get out of there. Nobody gets hurt, right? I think it's the fake tough guy stuff from Ryan Day. That's what I really do feel.
Yeah, again, I mean, if I have no problem if you line up with a single back, you line up a shotgun or pistol, and you run a normal play and you get in there, all right, cool. But to do it off a fake kneel, again, I just don't like it. And I would say that about any coach doing that, regardless. But the fact that it is Ryan Day, the same guy who called out an 86-year-old man, like just fake yelling, like nobody's intimidated by Ryan Day.
He's convincing himself that he's tough. That's the thing. He has.
Yes.
That's really what it is. Everything is fabricated. Whereas like you look at, the Lions and Dan Campbell, all of that is genuine. Right, like that
Yes.
they're polar opposite, and even Jim Harbaugh at the Chargers now, right? Like they are a true tough team. The last 3 years, Michigan was a true tough team. So
yeah, and I think in any facet of life to be successful, I think you've got to be authentic. You've got to be yourself. And Ryan Day is a very good football mind, a great football mind, a guy that can scheme up a lot of different types of plays with his offense, and they're really good at that. I think he should lean more into that, and then like. I just don't understand where this constant need to show how tough your football team comes from. Like your defense is really fucking good. Your defense is really, really good. Like you don't need to keep doing this extra stuff. Like a couple years ago, I guess, but like, no, like let your team do the talking on the field. Like that's where it should be. But I again, to your point, there is that level of, I've got to show everybody. And sometimes that causes you to get tight in games that, maybe you're 23.5 point favorite, but you outthink yourself because it's happened the last 3 years. There's been a lot of moments where he's outthought himself that has caused harm to Ohio State's chances in those games.
Yeah, listen, so let's talk about this Saturday. I mean, you already talked about the defense a little bit. Let's start there. I do think that, to your point, obviously I have to imagine in the Ohio State locker room right now, they're nervous and very focused on the interior line, or just I guess their offensive line in general, because they're down now, 3 starters throughout the year, right? And with McLaughlin going down this 2 weeks ago, you're staring across as the backup center who has had now 1 game all year at Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, and you're probably shitting down your leg a little bit.
And Rayshon Benny, I thought, had his best game of the season against Northwestern. He was all over the place. Josiah Stewart played extremely well. Derek Moore, TJ Guy. So that front 4, whoever they alternate in there, they found some success with some guys that, came on later in the year, like a TJ Guy. Cameron Brandt's getting a ton of play. Like you're seeing some younger guys step in. So I think what Michigan was so good at last year defensively was not only just having Jesse Minter, who might be the best defensive mind in football right now, with you look at what he's doing with the Chargers, what he did at Michigan, but you also had an extraordinary amount of depth. Now, obviously, we talked about all offseason, this defense doesn't have that same level of depth, but they've got enough guys in rotationally throughout the year that I think they feel comfortable with, hey, we're going to be able to sit a guy and give him some rest so he can be fresh throughout the game versus, hey, he's got to play every single down, because that takes his toll, especially when you're talking about Mason Graham, who's how big is Mason? 330 pounds, 315.
Too big.
Kenneth Grant's even bigger. I don't know what bigger than too big is, but that's KG.
But so, I think to your point though, that is the one thing that the only thing, not the only thing, but one of the biggest factors in this Michigan defense having success versus Ohio State's offense is staying fresh, right? Because we know that Michigan's offense is probably, they're going to have a number of 3 and outs, right? You have to expect that because Ohio State's defense is very good. Michigan's offense not so good. So the way that Michigan's defense has gotten, hammered in the past is by, just getting worn down because they're on the field so often. So to your point, if Cam Brandt, Rayshon Benny, et cetera, can get some good push against Ohio State and keep Mason and KG and Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore, if those guys can stay fresh, that is a big, big difference for Michigan. And then, I guess the other question is, I know there are some reports of Will Johnson not being able to play for Ohio State game now too. Our guy Pete Thamel, everyone loves him. All Michigan fans just love him so much.
Who's giving him I
don't understand why he's the one breaking that. Like I don't, but also no one else has broken it. So are we trusting Pete Thamel with that? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I saw that Sharon said things are trending in the right direction for Colston, who did not come out in the second half. But I think somebody said that he was jumping around with his teammates. So, maybe just a precaution. You're up. He scores a touchdown right before half. So, you hope that he's going to be good. And then with Will, same thing. And Sharon said, we'll see. The last time he said something like that, Michigan ended up getting Bryce Underwood when they asked about the quarterback situation for 2025. So maybe Sharon is being a little bit coy. But yeah, if you can get Will back, I thought Amir Hall played really well. Now this again, I mean, it's just a different level of talent when it comes to Ohio State and their wide receivers. So we'll see. But if you can get Will back, that FPI thing should go up to like 15%. Because Will Johnson is a game breaker, and look at the big plays he made against USC, right, with the pick six. Michigan's going to have some sort of defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown, which I thought Tyler Morris looked a lot better returning punts than Samaj did. So I'm very, very thankful for that. But yeah, Michigan's going to have some sort of like short field opportunities to be able to go and win a game like this. You're going to need all hands on deck, obviously.
Yeah, especially, I mean, Jair Hill, there's something weird going on with him that nobody knows about. He's not playing, not on the injury report, wearing number 35 instead of number 20. I mean, there's something weird going on there that I don't really even understand. Like, you get your number taken away. I'm not fully sure.
Do you remember Jim would do that? Like, there was a corner that committed from the state of Georgia, and he went to, I think, transferred. It was not Miles Sims. There was another one. But he was like number 6, and then they in the spring practice, so it was off-season thing. They changed his number to like 39, and then he transferred.
They just give people shitty numbers.
It's like maybe the first step of like the reconciliation process. Like, all right, you got to wear this crappy number now. Got to wear a cornerback number from the 1950s. But yeah, I don't know. But he did register some snaps. He actually ended up one of the highest graded players in like 7 plays, I think. So in Jair Hill. So we'll see.
We get him back. That's super helpful.
Yeah, I mean, again, all hands on deck, man. I mean, when it comes to this, you need everybody. I saw Josiah Edmond got some run, played well late in the game. So Mason Curtis at safety, I think that kid's going to be a freak, because I don't know if you remember his recruiting profile, Justin, but they were like, well, he could play defensive end, he could play linebacker. He plays safety in high school right now, and he made a great play. It was 4th down. Should have batted it down, but it's a true freshman making a play, getting the buff. So, you saw a lot of younger guys get some run on Saturday against Northwestern, which was great. That's the first time that Michigan's had that opportunity really this year. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you really do forget how many times last year Michigan's starters didn't play in the 4th quarter, right? And so you were able to get a bunch of younger guys in, and that proved to be, helpful for them later on in the season. The 2 things I wanted to mention from Michigan's defense too, I think this is a big Makari Page game. Makari's got to be on his game, can't get beat deep. We have to tackle when we have somebody contained, yes. Right? We cannot let them pick up 10, 15 more plus extra yards just because they make one juke move, or because you over pursued, right? So I think that's a big deal there. And then I think just, from the get-go, going back to the Ohio State offensive line and Michigan D-line, if Michigan, I've said this multiple times this year, if Michigan can push them back and get to Will Howard early, then I think this game is different, right? If you can, these guys, they really haven't played. I mean, yes, they played in a couple big games, right? But like not in this game, right? And I know they're at home, but I think if you can cause chaos on that Ohio State offensive line from the beginning, they're going to be like looking around like, oh shit, real quickly. And Will Howard's going to be like, shit, I'm going to have to get this ball out quickly. Right. So I think that you have to dial up, if you're Wink, you have to dial up some things to try to, cause chaos right in the middle from the get-go, from, KG and Mason. And then all of a sudden, the first drive of the game is so influential in how college kids feel. Right. And if we can come out and get a stop right away, I think it changes everything. So that was just what I had to say about Michigan defense.
Yeah, and I hope that Wink has some things dialed up that maybe haven't been put on film, some different ways that over the last 3 years, one thing that Michigan's done extremely well is just disguising where pressure's coming from, where the coverage is with their drops, and their, they'll simulate pressure from one side, and maybe a guy will drop, and then they'll have somebody coming on the other side of the offensive line. So I think if Michigan's able to be creative and, Wink calls a great game. Like if the way Wink has been calling defense, I saw a stat over the last 10 quarters, Michigan's given up like 549 yards. So you average that out, that's 200 plus 210 yards a game defensively, which is fantastic. So, and that includes second half against Oregon. So, I just feel like if they can, to your point, get some pressure, I think one thing you got to be aware of is Howard's legs. I don't know if he's much of a scrambler, but they definitely want him involved in the run game. So I'm sure they're going to have some stuff cooked up for Michigan. Both teams are obviously going to have things that they haven't shown on film. I would assume going to Michigan's offense, I would like to see something played off of Donovan throwing the ball. Like, it's kind of been used too many times. Like, what can you do off of that? How can you, because I thought Michigan against Northwestern was extremely creative in some of their designs, and I really liked what I saw from them offensively throughout the game. Like, I thought Kirk did a good job with the game plan. And so what do you have cooked up for the game?
I mean, I think that I would have hoped, especially with how this season has went, I would have hoped that they would have been, at least in the second half of this season, installing something for Ohio State every single week, right?
You would think I would take that. I would love to have known that they were every practice doing something for Ohio State half the time. Who gives a shit, right? Because if you win this game, all the stuff, all the nonsense, look, you're still gonna have to make those changes we talked about throughout the season, right, with the staff. But you win this game, if you're Sharon, you pull out all the stops, and you're prepping for this game since the moment you lost to Washington. Hell yeah, dude! Like, I'm with it. So I hope that they kept the same level of intensity and the focus on this game that Jim Harbaugh really had at the end of his tenure. That's what you need to go and pull upsets like this. That's why Michigan State would upset Michigan under Mark D'Antonio, because this was the one they circled.
Totally. So you mentioned that Michigan's run game worked really well against Northwestern, which it did. It felt like a 2023 game, right? Where it's just like, all right, we can do pretty much whatever we want right now, especially on the ground. And how can Michigan's offense do that against Ohio State? Because let's be honest, outside of the Northwestern game, the latter half of the season, the run game has not been cooking.
No, it hasn't. I don't really know the answer. I mean, I think you've got to be creative. You've got to have gadget plays. You got to have stuff that plays off of what's been successful for you all year. And there have been things that have been successful for them that they've been able to rely on. I think they've got to try to find a way to get Colson the ball, or if he's going to be a decoy, you got to find a way to get your receivers involved. I thought what they did with Tyler Morris, and it felt like they really wanted to get him the ball. And he's a Chicago kid, so maybe it was like, hey, he's playing Northwestern, let's get him the ball. But I really liked how they put an emphasis on getting the football to Tyler Morris. I think in a normal world where Michigan has actual receivers on the outside, I think Tyler Morris is a perfect slot guy. I said this over the weekend. I would love for him to come back with some actual 6'2 plus receivers on the outside and let him be a slot. I think he could be a really good football player for Michigan, and we've seen it in big moments from him. So I think with Tyler Morris, he's certainly your best receiver. I think he's been your best receiver all year long, and they just haven't tried to get the ball to him or haven't been able to. But I think you're going to have a lot of trick plays, a lot of misdirection. You're probably going to want to use Alex Orji in some scenarios. I don't know if you can try to, go off of what has been on film all year long with the QB power. I don't know if he can do it. Can you do a read option?
One bomb from Orji or some shit, man. I don't know.
I think you do need to try to take the top off the defense. We
didn't have, and Orji really didn't play much at all, right, on Saturday. But
he didn't play at all.
He didn't play at all.
I don't believe so.
But I liked what they did with Davis with more dinking and dunking, right? But at some point, I'm saying literally, even if you just chuck the ball 50 yards down the field, 10 yards over the receiver's head to show that you can,
yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yes.
You have to do something. Otherwise, the safeties, if you watched any of it on Saturday, I was watching on TV because I wasn't able to be there.
Not this one. Any game. The safeties are 10 yards or closer to the line of scrimmage every single fucking play.
And they come downfield so fast, right? As soon as the ball snapped, essentially. So I think you have to, early on, even if it's not going to work. I honestly don't care if it's going to work or not. Overthrow the ball, but show them that you're willing to do it. because otherwise those safeties are going to sit there at 10 yards and you're never going to be able to make those mid-level throws to Colston.
Yeah, I'm with you. You've got to try to take shots, even if you don't complete them. We've been saying that all year. Another thing I'm going to bring up again is Donovan Edwards needs to be involved in the pass game. I would line him up at wide receiver. I don't know why that hasn't been done the last 2 years. He would instantly be one of your best receiving threats. I just don't get it. Khalil Mullings needs to get 30 carries, and maybe you pray that he has a Tim Biaka-Batuka type game. That's, there's not a lot of window to win this game, but there is a window.
There is a small window, right? But you have to take advantage of every single opportunity. I think the other thing too is like from Davis, you can't make the mistake that you made against Northwestern where you're just like overthrowing a guy, right?
Yeah, you can have that.
Because he actually has played really well and protected the football really well, since he got benched. And so you can't do that, which is, I think, why they continue to throw the dinks and dunks, right? Because they'd rather have that than turning the ball over, obviously.
Yeah. So any deep shot, Justin, to your point, it's got to be something that only your receiver can get to. And if you got to throw it out of bounds, you throw it out of bounds because you've got maybe the best player in college football lurking back there with Caleb Downs. We've seen him, obviously, when Michigan beat Alabama in the Rose Bowl. So, but he's a guy that can be a game wrecker. He had the punt return. That's another thing, too, just on that note, special teams. I was pretty disappointed with the way that the punt coverage was on Saturday. I still continue to not understand what the hell having a full-time special teams coordinator does if your special teams aren't going to be that great. But then Tyler Morris had some nice returns. So, but you've got to be in your lanes. You cannot get too overzealous. You can't create a cutback lane for somebody returning punts. I don't know if Downs is the full-time punt returner. I don't know their situation.
He had a hell of a return on Saturday, though.
Yeah, so you've got to play the field position game. You cannot give them short fields. That's going to be a backbreaker if you give them short fields. And but yeah, offensively, I think they're really damn good. They got a lot of really good football players around, and I think for Michigan, to your point, you got to be able to try to take advantage of maybe the pass rush that they have because they do have guys that can get home to the quarterback. It only took them 4 years to get developed, but they can finally get to the quarterback now on the edge. So for Michigan, I think you've got to try to incorporate the screen game. Just watch the Lions, dude. Just watch the Detroit Lions and how they now look. You don't have Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, but just watch the Lions and how they incorporate the screen game to take advantage of teams that are very blitz happy. Because I think it's gonna be 2022 all over again. Problem is that Michigan doesn't have Cornelius or Roman or Ronnie Bell, and they don't have JJ McCarthy. So how can you take advantage of them? Because that's gonna be that game plan. I guarantee they're just gonna bring the house and they're gonna be within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. They're not gonna respect Michigan's deep game at all. So, like you said, you have to try to take shots. Who cares, man? Like, okay, if you take a deep shot and you throw a pick on a 3rd and 8 at midfield, then it's a punt. Like, I don't care,
I 100% agree. I think that there have to, the way that Michigan beat them in 2022 was double moves, right? Colston's was a double move. Cornelius's was a double move. So can you, hold the offensive line? Can the offensive line hold for long enough for a double move? And Davis also, you got to step into a ball, right? I think his happy feet it has not been solved, I would say, over the course of 11 games here this year. And so he's got to be able to feel confident enough to step into it. And in general, just Michigan has to have an edge. They've had an edge, right? The last 3 years, they have felt like they could beat Ohio State, right? Like they felt it in their heart that they could do it. And I don't know that we felt it before that, right? Like it was like, we think we can, but not really fully sure. You have to go out there, whether you actually can or you can't. You have to think that you can win this game.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that are going to play a long time in the National Football League on this Michigan team. So, we've talked about it all year long. And, we were maybe critical at times when it just felt like they just were kind of lackadaisical. I will say this. I was extremely impressed on Saturday because that's easily a game you can mail in. It's senior day, so you've got that juice a little bit, but just really impressed with how hard those guys played on Saturday. And that gives me just outside of this week, just gives me a lot of hope and faith moving forward that Sharon can build the type of culture in the locker room that Michigan's been able to thrive with the last 3 years. Because again, that's easily a game you could mail in. So that gives me hope that these guys give a shit about their legacy at Michigan, and it's already cemented, right? When you think about the guys that have played on the last 2-3 years of this team, they are 2 or 3-time Big Ten champions. They are national champions. They are undefeated against Ohio State. What does that mean to you to go out with, a massive upset that would just change the trajectory of the program even further beyond any of the recruiting stuff of, hey, man, you can't beat us, right? So can you go out and have a dominant performance? Can you play in a way that gives your team a chance to win? And we're asking a lot because the guys, as I'm saying this, I'm thinking of Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant and Josiah Stewart and Colson Loveland and guys that have, you think about, just Josiah Stewart making a huge play against Alabama last year on the 4th and goal where he puts Alabama's first-round tackle on his ass and causes a scrum that lets Michigan get out of there with a win. Colson Loveland has made huge plays against Ohio State in both games that he's played. He's made huge plays in playoff games and Big Ten championships. Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant have been phenomenal their entire careers at Michigan. If Will can come back again, Will's another guy. His legacy is cemented. He made a huge play in the second half of the national championship. He had a huge interception that set up Michigan's first touchdown against Ohio State. But what does that mean to you? Because you could go out of here with a whimper, and it's not their fault, right? The offense hasn't been great, all these things. But what happens if these guys say, fuck that, we're going to go win this football game, and we're going to leave this place with maybe the greatest legacies of all time? Because if they go out there and they shock the world, which, again, I'm not expecting this to happen. I know you're not either. But if they go out there and they're just dominant and they can't move the ball and it just gives Michigan an opportunity to win the game and they do that, those guys, you build them a statue. All of them a statue.
100%. You've got me fired up now. I love it.
I know, man. I'm ready to go.
You're talking me into it, too, because I do think that –
I don't want to do that, though.
I know. I'm not talking me fully into it. Trust me. Talking me into the chance, right?
Yeah.
But I think that those guys have that in them, right? Like they have – I think that we've talked about it on other podcasts here where, I'm proud of Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant and Colston Loveland at how hard they fought through this year, even though it's been an obvious, huge disappointment.
Yeah.
Right. They all could have mailed it in. Right. And so I'm proud of them for sure. And when you look at Makari Page and Quentin Johnson and a lot of these guys know what it takes. Kalel Mullings, Donovan Edwards obviously knows what it takes. Right. So dig deep one time and let's go do it. Right. So I don't know. Again, I'm not expecting it, but the chance is there. The opportunity is there 100%. I think you have to play a mistake-free football game to win this game, right? Penalties, missed assignments, missed tackles cannot happen. Obviously, turnovers. And then when you do get an opportunity to score, you have to score 7 points.
You can't settle. Nope, you cannot settle. You cannot do what you did against Indiana if you want to win this game.
Definitely. I totally agree. One thing I wanted to mention too here before we wrap up is you mentioned, Sharon Moore, and he's been able to, to win this football game already for Michigan. Brady Hoke, there are a lot of issues with the Brady Hoke era. There's no doubt about that, but he kept every Ohio State game close. Right.
Yeah.
He was able to get his boys up for that game. Right. And those are some bad football teams, man, bad football teams. And they pulled shit out of a hat, right. To figure out how to make that game close. So I think if you're Sharon Moore, that's exactly what you're trying to do is, that you're out talented on, at a lot of positions, especially on the offensive side of the ball, but can you get your boys up to play above their level, right? Get them to play better than they have all year. Let's play our best game from start to finish. Let's play 4 quarters. And then let's go just have an edge, right? Let's get up for this game, right? Let's make sure that let's have a tenacity that we haven't really seen a ton this year, right? So we've seen it at times. We haven't seen 4 quarters of an enthusiasm unknown to mankind, if you will, right? And so can you go into Columbus like you did 2 years ago? And 2 years ago was like again, nobody believed in Michigan to win that game around the nation. I think Michigan did, right? Blake was hurt. We hadn't won in Columbus since 2000, right? There was no chance that we were going to win that game. You know what JJ McCarthy did was he willed himself. Donovan Edwards, they willed themselves. The O-line willed themselves. And so you have to, and obviously the other thing too is, let's be honest with that game, everything did go right for Michigan. They took advantage of every single opportunity. When they took the deep shots, it worked, right? And so you have to be able to do that. But you also have to be able, when shit goes wrong, you have to be able to bounce back, right? They weren't, Michigan, it wasn't until the fourth quarter that was like a complete blowout, which it was. For any Ohio State fans watching, it wasn't 5 plays. It was a complete ass kicking.
Should have been 52-23. That mother effer was not down, and that would have been a scoop and score.
Yep, 100%. But, it's been the same thing the last 3 games against Ohio State, right? I believe has Michigan been down at halftime in all 3 games?
They were down. Were they down? No, they were up in all. No, they're down to 22. They were up the last in 21 and 23 at the Big House.
Okay. So, the last time they were in Columbus, you're down at halftime in Columbus where you haven't won in 20 plus years, right? I think that's where, for me, it's like that you have to have that type of an attitude. Like, we don't give a fuck, right? Yeah. Like we're going to come out here and we have a good game plan and our backs against the wall. We'll bring it on. We're still coming, right? We're not folding until this thing hits zeros.
And you're playing with house money, right? Because it's the game. You don't want to lose it. You can't lose it. All those sorts of things. But like, you're really kind of playing with house money. Like, they're the ones that have all the pressure on them. Because if they lose this game, you know what happens is they're out of the Big Ten championship, and then their best win is Indiana.
And Colston Loveland weeks ago said we're trying to ruin people's seasons, right?
They haven't ruined anyone's yet, so let this be the one.
This would be a sweet one to ruin. That's for damn sure. And it would be complete meltdown city by anybody in Columbus. So I think we want to keep saying that we're not expecting a lot to happen here, but you can see a path to victory, if a lot of these things, if they can pull out some magic from 2023, 22, 21, if you can dig deep and find that in yourself, any of these guys, there's a chance.
No, absolutely. And, pulled all the stops, bring in Jack Harbaugh, who still lives in Ann Arbor. I don't know, is Jim coming home for Thanksgiving? Can you imagine the boost that the team would get from seeing Jim? Get Tom Brady on a Zoom call, like pull out all the stops,
If Sharon isn't calling Jim Harbaugh like every day this week or the past couple weeks to say, hey, how do we beat this team? If he's not, he should actually be calling Jesse Minter more than anything, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who they play on Sunday, but come on, guys, give us a little something here. Coaches talk though. Obviously, I'm sure Ryan Day's having conversations with folks that he knows in the NFL that have gone against Wink Martindale, offensively. So Chip Kelly's probably doing the same thing. Both guys had spent time in the National Football League, and if I don't know, I'm sure they've gone against Wink Martindale. So
it's actually the Har Bowl this weekend.
Oh, that's right.
It's right. Monday night. So maybe they can, is that in LA? Yes, it is in LA. So maybe, quick trip back on Saturday for the game, or maybe even, Thanksgiving or Friday or something. Have some Black Friday football, like at the Harbaugh house or something in Jack's front yard. And then, head back head back for the game. So
what's a PJ? 4.5 hours from LA. Michigan's kind of the central hub for the family.
Agreed.
Because John's in Baltimore. So,
I mean, you're going back to your parents' house, right? Like, I mean,
for sure.
For Thanksgiving.
That's why you get paid $60 million a year. You can hop on a PJ.
Like, I'm telling you, I will not be shocked if we see like Jim and John in the front yard of Jack Harbaugh's house and like tossing the football around on Thursday.
Absolutely. You can get an early flight out. You probably give you guys Thursday off, or, maybe you have a very early practice so they can enjoy it with their families, and you hop on a PJ and then you're back Friday morning.
Easy.
I'm not asking a lot, guys.
Just a little bit. Somebody call Jim Harbaugh, please. please.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will have another podcast later this week as we get closer to the game, possibly even a little Thanksgiving snake draft for food.
I'm excited for that. I've always wanted to do like that kind of snake draft, so I've got some notes. I'm ready, and we can also talk about some Michigan basketball. As we're recording this, it's about 1:00 here on Monday, so they play Virginia Tech tonight in Fort Lauderdale, I believe.
Fort Myers, I think.
Fort Myers. Okay, so those cities are further apart than I expected. But those they play tonight, and that's a tournament.
Something in Florida,
Yeah, I think Fort Myers on the west side of the state. Fort Lauderdale's by Miami.
I mean, it's where old people go to retire.
It is warmer than it is here. It is sunnier than it is here in Ann Arbor. So good luck to the basketball team. I don't know. We'll try to get this up ASAP so it'll be topical. But play Virginia Tech tonight, and then they win that. I don't know who's on the other side of that bracket, but good opportunity for some wins. And this is, by the way, the best week of the year, alongside from Christmas to New Year. Just the time off work and college basketball, the college football on, NFL, turkey, food. It's just a great time of year. It's my favorite week of the year. So catch me doing a whole lot of nothing this week, except watching Sportsman and hanging out. So it's gonna be great. But yeah, I'm excited for the snake draft. I've got a lot of good outside the box ideas.
Ooh, I like that. You're bringing something new to the table.
Oh yeah,
literally and figuratively.
Literally, yes.
All right. Well, let's do. What are you doing to beat Ohio State today? That's what I want all of you listeners to be thinking about every single day this week. And we will, we'll be doing the same here. So I'm honestly watching so many highlights from the last 3 years. Do
you want to know what I'm doing?
What are you doing?
I found what I think is a gray hair in my beard, and I'm going to not buy Just for Men.
Okay. Oh, I like that. So that's some coaches out there maybe overdo the Just for Men. So that's okay. That's good. That makes you more of a man, not sensitive, not overcompensating.
Yes. But if you see me on a flight to Turkey, don't worry about it.
Just don't ask questions. Just mind your
business. Gray, but it's falling back. We got to take care of that.
Yeah. All right. For us, you can follow us at Blue by 90 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Blue by 90 Podcast on YouTube, and blueby90.com. We appreciate you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.